This is going to be a short episode. I don't know why TikTok looks so funny, guys. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do it on my tablet and it's really being silly. But this is probably going to be a short episode because the guest I had lined out couldn't get in. He had some technical difficulties with the link and it just didn't work out. But he was going to talk about relapse. So I thought that I would talk about relapse instead for just a little bit and we'll just call it a short episode. I did the first episode of Close Out yesterday. So I already put out an episode this week for anybody that didn't get to see it or that was looking forward to watching the full length episode of this show. You can check that out. So I make sure all my chats are connected just in case. Okay. So I guess I'll tell a little bit about my story and then I'll talk, obviously I've had some relapses along the way, so we'll kind of touch on those. I started using drugs really young. I was pretty much introduced to it as a child. My family all did drugs. It was very common. I really was in my teens before I knew that it wasn't normal for everybody's family to just do drugs all the time. And by the time I realized that, I had already started drugs. I started smoking weed at 9, and then I started harder stuff very young, very, very young. I went through some problems. My parents obviously were divorced, and my mom moved us far away out to a whole nother state way out west, and that was a whole bad situation. Her family out there, they were in drugs as well. So we went from bad to worse, I would say. And they were cooking meth, and it got us like we ended up getting in a raid, and my mom went to jail, and my dad, he was back in Ohio, and he was still in jail, in and out of jail. He probably, he had warrants and stuff like that. He did eventually end up coming to get me when my mom got arrested. My dad, he came to Iowa and got me and brought me back down here with him and lived with him for a little while. My mom ended up coming back down here. Just a lot of things back and forth, unstable house as, a child. I really started using hard drugs though when I was about 17. I started with heroin and the needle, and it just, it went downhill from there. I was working at the time and had just got my own first apartment and stuff, and it slammed me backwards. I ended up back at my parents' house, and where there was a house full. There was probably 12 or 13 people living in a trailer, and we just did drugs. That's what we did. We moved from that trailer down to a different town with my parents. I ended up just completing that cycle where I had never even thought about quitting drugs, never even considered it. Until, I got arrested probably for the first time when I was 19. And even still, yet, even through all of that, like I knew that I was coming home to the same situation and it was going to just be right there. So I never even considered that it was possible to quit. Hi, Sarah. I see you on TikTok. I don't know why I look funny, why I'm so close. I'm trying to do it on my tablet, but anyways, I had my guest for today. He couldn't get in, so I'm just telling my story a little bit. So I went, like I said, I got arrested at 19 and for the first time, and I think I only did a night in jail that time, but I was sick. I remember being sick in jail, but even then, like the first thing I did when I came home, the very first thing I did when I came home was use, and I never even wanted to quit. I don't know. Anyways, for years until I ended up, I was pretty bad off there at the very end, smoking crack and doing heroin, and I ended up pregnant, and I did come down to live with my family in Kentucky when I got pregnant because I knew that I could not continue, that it would kill a baby, the amount of drugs that I was doing, every day and stuff. There's no way that a baby would survive and come out normal. So I came down here and I was clean, and I went back up to Ohio in December after we had been down here for months, and I ended up getting arrested, and then I had my daughter in prison, and she ended up going to foster care for the first few months of her life until I got out. But that was really my wake up call. That was the first time when I decided that I could do it, or that I wanted to do it, that I had a reason to do it, I guess, was when I knew that it wasn't about me. When I was in the hospital, having my daughter, and no one was there with me. Like, and there was nowhere for her to go. Like, she had to literally go to foster care because there was no one to take her. And that was when I realized that something had to change. Like, if I don't even know a person good enough to take my baby, like, something is seriously wrong with my life. So I did have her, and I went back to jail. I did get really very lucky. I had an amazing caseworker who brought her to see me. It took about 3 or 4 weeks to get it together, which I know it doesn't sound like that long, but when you've just had a baby and you can't see it, that was like so long. But once they did start bringing her, they brought her twice a week, and then all the way until I went to prison, and then they brought her up there twice a month because it was pretty far from, but they did, I was only there, it wasn't very long before I got out, after all that, after I had her, before I got out, it was just a few months. So, but I did get very lucky, and they set it up too. My caseworker was amazing. She would send me letters on the weeks that I didn't. So I would get a visit every other weekend, and on the weeks that I did not get a visit, I would get a letter with pictures, and they would describe like her milestones and stuff like that. And that was really amazing. I got so lucky because there's so many women in prison. That's so rare. Like, when I'm sitting here telling you guys is not how it normally happens for mothers in prison. So, then when I got out, I did really good for a while. I got a job right away. I did drywall for a couple years, and I lived with my dad, and he watched my daughter for me while I worked, and we really had a good thing worked out. And then slowly, I saw him start using again. Like, slowly, I could tell that he was using, and then it just slowly over time. I couldn't even tell you like how, because it started off slow. Like, it started. I know. I remember I went to the dentist, and I had gotten some dental work done, and he gave me pain pills, and then my dad, like, did some of them, and I don't know, just he fell back in hard, and I moved down around a different area in Kentucky, not where I am now, but for a while, and I was still working and fighting, and then some stuff happened down there. Oh, I had parole. I was on parole in Ohio, and I was lying to them and telling them that I was living up there still because they didn't want to transfer it. It was only a little bit of time, but I didn't want to be there, and it was best that I wasn't up there. Like, they didn't know though, so they did violate me, and I went to jail just for like 2 weeks, but when I got out, now I was back up there at my mom's house, and where they were using, and she was with my dad at this time, and they just my brother and them lived across town, and they just all they did all the time was they would get up and they hustled up money to go get high. So naturally, when I did first get out, I had a car, so I was valuable to them, and I drove them around, and they would pay me. And then eventually it just got to where it was, it was there, it was in my face, and they were doing it, and they were getting high, and I wanted to be high too, because now I feel like crap about my life, everything that I had just worked for years. was gone. Like I had been sober and clean and was working, and I had got my daughter back out of sea. I got her back so fast, guys. Like when I got out of jail, I got out of jail at the end of October, and I got my daughter back at let's see, I got out December 5th was the day. So like, a little bit right over a month. And I thought I was doing the damn thing. And then all this bad stuff just keeps happening to me. And I fell back in, and eventually I start using with them. And then my life just very quickly got out of control again. We moved from that apartment, let's see, out into a trailer where a dope boy ended up coming from the city and posting up next door at the neighbor's house. And just, I don't know, it was dope, dope, dope everywhere. And so I was using for probably, I don't know, a year. And I ended up moving. Let's see what happened. We ended up losing that house. And my parents they went and stayed in the basement of a friend's house. We were all really bad by this point. And I ended up homeless. I was homeless for a good while. And I ended up down in the city in Cincinnati, homeless. And luckily by this time, like I want to get clean, but it's just, it's so hard, especially when you're in those types of situations, because you don't want, and I know it sounds silly because you're like, I have no money and I'm homeless and I can't even eat. And then I get a little bit of money and I go buy drugs with it, because you don't want to feel that. No excuses, man. That's a ridiculous, irresponsible, immature attitude, but that's the one that you have at that time. And so eventually, though, we get housing and we get clean. Or, well, I start going to the methadone clinic, and that was my version of clean for a while, which it saved my life. It did. It kept me off the streets. And but I had never taken care of all the legal problems still yet. So I did end up getting arrested and going back to jail, even after I had been clean for, I don't know, years, probably a couple years after all this happened. I was clean, and I ended up going back to jail in Campbell County, and I did 18 months that time. So I had already had my daughter, who then went and lived with my parents, and that was an awful mistake. And my dad died while I was locked up. And but as hard as it was losing my dad, I really kind of feel like that sometimes you have to lose people to grow in your life, because um, I had tried to move away from up there several times. I had came down here to Kentucky with my family. It's down here that they don't use drugs, and I would always go back up there. And it was my dad would hold us. He like held us together. So like with him being gone, now I've came down here. I've been down here now for years, and I'm married, and with kids and husband. No ever thoughts of going back, So I think that I definitely had to lose him to get where I am today, as much as that sucks. But today I am, we own our home, and I work and support my family. I have 3 beautiful children and an amazing husband. So, and I'm clean and sober. I'm taking my peer support specialist certification courses so that I can help other people, because I definitely think that I have a lot of lived experience. I guess that's kind of why I started the podcast, because I was sober, and but I don't use my experience. I don't even talk about my experience. I act like it doesn't happen, like it never happened, or like I was nothing or nobody before I came down here. That's the kind of way that I feel. And so I created this space so that people could come on here and talk talk about the messy stuff that they've done. I know I didn't get very even personal today. I haven't told my story out loud in a long time, until just I started taking these peer support courses. So I'm working on it, and stay tuned for more. Definitely, I have lots of stories, lots of little juicy pieces of what I've said today.
it's my time, think it's my year, yeah. I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah. I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah. I really feel it's my time, think it's my been ready. Used to hold myself back, my self-esteem damn bad. Gotta keep on chugging. Ran through everything in front of me, might smoke bed in heaven. Got a whole agenda.